Welcome back to another segment of Behind the Scenes of the Waltons. Today I am taking more of your questions in another segment of Ask Judy. Okay, a long question here from Bake Like a Pro. Sounds like something I should be sampling. Anyway, who knew that for the tight shots, they were all shot over again? I wonder why that was. Was it because the cameras were just so expensive they couldn't roll one wider shot and a second tighter shot at the same time? I wonder if this is done today or technology now is less expensive, more cameras, etc. Seems this would make more sense today. It works a little bit differently. Sometimes shows will work with maybe two cameras, but lighting can be different for a wider shot than it is for a close-up. So anytime you're dealing with getting multiple shots, it could impact lighting. So typically in film, as opposed to, or even TV shows, drama shows, as opposed to sitcoms, where they'll work with what they call three cameras, then they will have three cameras set up, and it's more of a broad scope of lighting that just sort of lights everything. Whereas ours was shaped a bit more to create shadows and different things like that. So I think close-ups were more impacted, and they wanted to adjust things sometimes for close-ups. But if they were going to use a couple cameras, then both cameras would already be set up, and they would tend to be from a pretty similar position. So the wide shot might be here, and the close-up camera might be just a little bit off to the side. So they were getting a similar perspective on the lighting. And they would just roll the whole thing. They wouldn't start a camera partway through because all of the sound still needed to sync. They would just like roll A camera, roll B camera, and they, do all of that at the same time. Yes, every time you have a second camera crew, it's an extra expense, not just for the equipment, but also for the crew, because you need a camera operator and a second camera assistant to work focus, and then, potentially also a second camera assistant to do the sticks. So more people to pay. We typically only worked with one camera, except on rare occasions when we were having a bigger scene where we might bring in a second camera. Not very common. So I don't think that it's done a ton anymore. Sometimes with big action things now, they might just set a camera someplace and it might be just picking up like one angle, and those cameras might just get pieces. I remember working on a show up in Canada called Cold Squad. And it was a big scene where there was a hostage situation. And so there was a lot going on, a lot of police officers, and they had several cameras shooting different things. So at any given time as an actor, you didn't know which camera might be on you or picking up pieces of what you were doing, or when you might be in the background of something. So that was a little challenging as an actor because it was a hugely emotional scene for me, where I was supposed to be hysterical because my son's supposed to be inside this building and there's guns being fired. And so I don't know what's happening. And my husband and I are just there and, kind of freaking out. So every single take, because I didn't know what the cameras were going to catch, we had to be sort of at full emotional range in case a camera caught a piece of you. You couldn't just be sort of marking it or having a casual take, or, oh, I'm off camera, so I don't have to fully emote. So that was kind of an exhausting day. So I hope that kind of helped with that answer to that question. Question from Bob. I'm so enjoying your posts, particularly the Ask Judy segments. Thank you so much. How early in the process did the cast suspect that the series might run as long as it did? I don't know that I ever had that sense. It was just kind of season to season. Each season we hoped we would be picked up for the next season. I think after we got through the first season, when we started way in the bottom of the ratings and ended up at the top of the ratings by the end of the season, I think we felt pretty confident that we were having a good role. And for the next few seasons, as we sat in the top 5 or so, or top 3, we felt pretty confident that the show would continue. Once we got into maybe season 7, as the ratings, dropped a bit in season probably 7, 8, 9, it started to be more of a question, I think. But I think there were definitely times where it was like, wow, this is amazing. Who'd have thought that we would do 6 seasons, 7 seasons, 8 seasons. It was just always such a gift each season that we got to do another season. And then Bob also asked, did filming the reunion episodes, particularly the ones in the 90s, feel different from shooting the original series? And was it easy to fall back into the character and relationships with fellow cast members? I think falling back into the relationships was very easy because we had continued to be in touch over all the years that we were not doing the series. And because we had done 220 something episodes for those of us who did all 9 seasons, those relationships were pretty clear. It did feel different though, particularly in the 90s after, a number of years away from the show, mostly to work out for me who my character was at this point, what had gone on in her life since the regular series, and how that might have impacted who Mary Ellen was at this point in her life. What was different? We were in a different time period. So those things to work out were different. There wasn't, I think, the same, for me, level of comfort coming back into it. And it was more, in some ways, like stepping into another set, as would happen when I went to work on other shows, but with a degree of familiarity and comfort that I didn't have when I went on to someone else's set. Elaine asks, did the episode or any other specific episode win an Emmy? And what Emmys did any particular actors, actresses win from the Waltons, and for what? So we did win a number of Emmys, and also things like Golden Globe Awards and People's Choice Awards and things like that. We did win Best Drama Series one year, and Michael Learned won 3 Emmys for playing Olivia Walton. Richard won an Emmy. Will Geer won an Emmy. Ellen Corby won 3 Emmys for supporting actress for playing Grandma. And then individual things, Beulah Bondi won an Emmy for the episode The Pony Cart. And then some of our writers, both John McGreevy and Joanna Lee, won Emmys. Our editing team won Emmys. And then there were a number of other nominations. A number of writers were nominated, and a number of directors were nominated. I think other writers were nominated. Our brilliant cinematographer Russell Meddy was nominated. And then I think like Ralph Waite was nominated. Will and Ellen were nominated for years as well when they didn't win. And I think perhaps even Michael and Ellen may have been nominated other years that they didn't win. So there you go. Lots of nominations and lots of wins for the Waltons. A question from Dave. A quick question, and of course, thank you for continuing to do this. You're very welcome. I noticed you mentioned a lot of good choices that Ralph Waite made in shooting a scene. I was just thinking, I've read a couple of scripts and noticed the writer does frame the scene in a lot of detail. So this is a delegation question. How much breathing room does a director have in making shot choices compared to what the script demands? So I think that has changed over the years. In some scripts that I have read, there is quite a bit of detail. It'll say close-up, or it'll say long shot, or it'll say camera pans, or insert, or some get, or it moves in tight on the actor. So some scripts get into a fair bit of detail. But then, since I've gotten more into writing myself, I have also had experienced people advise me to not do much in the way of framing, or dictating camera choices. So I try to minimize that, because from what I understand, directors don't like to be micromanaged, nor do camera operators or cinematographers. So I think there's meant to be, or even actors. So you try not to tell an actor what he should think or what his attitude or emotion should be on every line. So you wouldn't say, oh, she says fearfully, or getting angry, or she rolls her eyes, or stomps her foot. So you want the script to tell the story, and you want to give the actors the room to find the performance and how they see the character, and you want the director to have freedom to tell his story, because it really is sort of how the director is crafting that story. So you don't want to micromanage as a writer. So I think these types of things may have changed over the years, and it may depend on the show, and it may depend on the writer. And sometimes you're going to get your hand slapped, and sometimes it might be perfectly fine. Thank you so much for all of your questions. If you have a question, please put them in the comments below. I go through the comments as much as I can. I answer as many of them as I can, and that is where I pull specific questions for the Ask Judy segments. So I will be back with more behind the scenes of the Waltons and more Ask Judy. Thanks for watching.